My name is Kevin Friel. I am also known as the Pixel Wizard for some of those who may be familiar with me before. I've been really going through the gamut of 25 years in film and video, now very much in the AI generative space, and it's a pretty amazing time. I say this every single month, both at the BC+AI ecosystem events and at the film events. We really are at a pretty incredible time right now. So last month, we talked about something big is happening. We introduced the orchestration age, which is agentic frameworks in coding, and they're fastly going to encroach over to video and film work. We said AI was building itself. We said the water was rising. So about that, 4 weeks later, we got new foundational models. AI burnout became a medical term, and the world, you've been doom scrolling, right? It's a little weird out there. You know, what are we looking at here? So, you know, we talked about the something is happening. Well, you know, that escalated quickly, didn't it? 4 weeks later, LTX2 shipped a full version upgrade and a desktop editor. Martini.film launched a filmmaker's Figma. Luma shipped actual AI agents, getting into the weeds of it. LTX 2.3 came out. It has a vast new array of features and capabilities. Image to video reworked, which is pretty amazing. Cleaner native audio. Vertical formats are a new one in LTX 2.3. So I know there's a bit of curiosity about the potential for generative work inside of the vertical format, which is very much a hot and emerging trend. LTX also came up with a native desktop editor, which allows you to basically generate inside of a timeline. It's a very native format. It's not quite as robust as using it through like Comfy UI or something like that. But in terms of like, you know, really working inside of the edit and getting your generations inside, you know, with that model and a one-for-one communication with it, it's a real paradigm shift in how you work instead of like trying to go across, you know, 10 or 15 different models now, pulling those shots in as like your generative camera negatives and working with those inside of your editor of choice, whether that's Resolve, Premiere, CapCut, or even Avid is still a thing. So, Martini.film is really interesting. Go have a look at this. And if you're connected with me on LinkedIn, please reach out to me. There's a special code that has early access and some free credits to it. And it's basically like a mood board style interface, an infinite mood board style interface, very kind of like Figma-esque is what people are calling it, where you can generate characters, you can, you know, have camera control, you can create whole universes. There's like Gaussian splats that you can use to have like environment consistency, so you can pan around in the same room without having to do like references in a lot of the recent models that we've had. So, and then Luma agents and boards also came on board on a similar paradigm, using the legacy of the Luma engine, which is very robust and one of the few, if not the only commercial models that lets you have that Hollywood grade output, and using 16-bit EXRs, having passes for your elements as well. So this whole platform has become a very robust way to create your universe if you're used to the Luma platform. So that escalated quickly. Right? We talked about the possibility for agentic frameworks inside of video, and look at all of these ones that just came out, right? It's a pretty amazing time. So yeah, that's it. You know, we've got all these things that have come out of nowhere. So another aspect of trying to keep up with all of this, as I'm sure some of you that have been keeping up with things, is this new study of AI burnout. And it's this notion that we're all sort of orchestrating these things at a very rapid pace. We're on top of like decision trees and contingencies that have never been approached by one singular human, rarely before, and we're doing that en masse. And it's creating this like cognitive load, you know, real sort of hitting our thresholds. The first signs of burnout are coming from the people who embrace AI the most. And I know I've been testing myself to like look at that that burnout threshold, and I'm really trying to keep a balance on that in probably the busiest month of my career that I've had so far, and that's saying something. I've had some busy months, but I've talked to a lot of folks in generative film and coding, and they're all feeling similar paradoxes. It's like I'm responsible for so many things now, and it's really becoming sort of a fever pitch. AI brain fry is the term that you're probably going to start seeing pop up around the social ecosphere. 45% higher burnout rate among frequent AI users. That's in an APA study. Productivity rises with 1 to 3 AI tools. At 4+, it plummets. Is what this study is seeing. Workers describe it as fog and buzzing. 1 in 7 report mental fatigue. Imagine that paradigm and something that's like, it's supposed to, and it does in many ways, create freedom, create time. But now we're seeing the scope of the work that, that we had before becoming so much more on many individuals. We're really at this ground where we're testing our limits. AI doesn't reduce work, it intensifies it. I see a lot of nodding heads in here, right? We're really at a new time. And also, oh my God, the world at the same time, right? We're consuming just what is happening in the world, and we're taking even bigger responsibilities of what we're up to. That escalated quickly, right? It's a pretty brilliant time. So, here's the thing. I love Claude for making these slides for me earlier this afternoon. It did a brilliant job. We're in a room full of people who love AI, right? Like we're all here, we're all kind of dipping our toes very early on. We're seeing what the potential is. We're seeing what the tools can do emerging week after week, day after day, sometimes hour after hour at this point of innovation. Who are excited about it, who showed up on a weeknight because we believe in it, probably mostly as individuals, right? And the research says we're the ones most at risk of burning out from it if we take that load purely as individuals. So if the answer isn't less AI and it isn't more AI, then maybe it's different AI. Maybe it's about who it's for, how we use it, and what kind of spaces we build around it. Which brings me to punk rock. I'm a real champion of punk rock. I came from the punk rock school of DIY. I had a band in the late 90s and early 2000s. We ran our own shows. We made our own recordings out of, duct tape and, whichever cassette players that we had. We hustled our CDs into record stores when we were able to actually afford them. We ran our own shows. We made our own audiences. We all learned web development so that we could have a website and get people to hear about it beyond just paper, pamphlets. This was big at the time. DIY or die. What punk rock figured out 50 years ago that Silicon Valley still kind of hasn't. Not the corporate parts. The underground parts are still very much there, but I think it's not quite there yet. 3 chords and the truth, no gatekeepers, make the thing. The venues were small. The community was everything. Does that sound familiar?
Punk's not dead.
Preach on, brother. You've got it. AI is the punk rock of coding. This is from Rick Rubin. Empowering ideas over technique, just as punk rock allowed anyone with 3 chords and something to say to make music. Replace coding with filmmaking? Right? We're kind of there, right? We're really on the precipice of this. The venues that changed music. Punk venues were the first spaces where LGBTQ plus artists, working class voices, and political dissidents could be heard when mainstream platforms rejected them. These weren't just clubs, they were incubators. $1 on a ticket equals $12 in local economic impact. $135 billion total output from indie venues in 2024. And we hear about how streaming has been a real challenge for music, and the numbers from streaming alone are absolutely abysmal. It's micro pennies on each stream. You have to have 1 million streams to get $4,000 US out of it. That's crazy. However, the opportunity that has started is exposure. It's creating micro niches. It's cultivating audiences. It's cultivating your own community through these platforms. It's a very kind of punk rock way to like treat these paradigms, right? You use this big platform to get your audience. And I lean on this a lot. I saw the nerdiest prog funk band you could imagine at the Commodore, Snarky Puppy. The lineup was around the block. People were passing by and they were just like, who's playing? Like, why is the Commodore like 3 times sold out? It's a Snarky Puppy. They're like, I think I've heard of Skinny Puppy. Is that the same thing? Like, who is Snarky Puppy? Why is the puppy so aggressive? Like, I don't understand. But they cultivated a micro niche online that was undeniable through beautiful content, through touring experiences where they had, Atmos mixed headphones in everyone in the audience. They got this like incredible sensory experience with the players in the room. It was like kind of being, as you are all sitting down right now, seeing this incredible, immaculate recording experience. And then they published that online and gained even more fandom through that. So, with those kind of ideals, I really love how music keeps seeing the problems and solves them in their own way and still evolving, but they've been through the gamut of a lot of these problems first, and we can glean a lot from that. So we can take that spirit and, whose stories get told. AI lowered the barrier, but who's walking through the door? AI video tools drop filmmaking costs by 60 to 80%. And I say that's sort of somewhere between a middle and a conservative average. One person can do what took dozens. LGBTQ plus creators, indigenous filmmakers, creators of color, people locked out of production budgets now have the tools. Look at the Nigerian AI film scene. It is amazing. They're doing the coolest real representational sci-fi, like Afrofuturism, I have ever seen. Go look it up. Kill Netflix for a night. Watch that. You're going to leave smiling. It's awesome. I love it. And this is the kind of, the opportunities that these tools have, but there's also a threat to that. The models carry bias. Training data skews mainstream. Representation at decision-making levels is thin. The tools are necessary, but not sufficient. You also need spaces, community, curation, and intent. And that's the whole enchilada of using these AI tools. It's all of those pieces put together. And, I've spoken a few times about how, there's a lot of lone wolf syndrome in AI filmmaking right now. And I think it's really time to get more rooms like this happening, where we get to see each other, say, like, hey, that short you made, that test you did in Kling 3 was really freaking cool. Like, what were your influences from that? And like cross-pollinate and jam with each other. I think that's a really exciting opportunity. So that's the theme of tonight. All of this is happening. How do we move forward as a community? Tonight's voices, we've got people here who are living this intersection. We're going to hear from creators working at the edges, people using these tools to tell stories the traditional pipeline would never greenlight. Voices from communities historically excluded from film, from the production pipeline, from distribution, from the conversation. I've anecdotally heard about, so many folks in the past couple of weeks in particular, and it's really informed, why I'm really passionate about this tonight. It's something I felt for a long time, and I'm just like, man, we got to do something about this. I've heard about voices that don't have the markers of privilege, have all sorts of doors be shut down. Why? It doesn't need to happen. And we can start creating a movement in rooms like this, and that's why I'm really excited that you're all here tonight. Are you with me, folks? Super cool. If AI film is going to mean something, it's going to be more than a tech demo reel. It needs what punk rock had: a scene, a community, venues, curation with a conscience, an economy that isn't controlled by the platforms. And that seems a weird notion when most of the tools that we're using is like, Google and Luma and, the Chinese vendors, Kling, ByteDance. These are all large initiatives. And fair enough, it's very expensive to train up a foundational model that's worth its salt. But the open source piece is really exciting. If you've got compute, there's still privilege in that. But if you've got compute, you can do things with just your electricity costs and your time. If you work at it long enough, it can hold up to the commercial models. LTX2 is open source even, so you can download that and run it on your own hardware if you've got enough juice and a little bit of technical know-how. And that's where community really comes in too, because if you don't have that, there's someone in this room, and probably like 70 of the 100 people in this room know a little bit about that. And that's what makes community aspect of all this is really exciting for me. So I also have a little idea that's been percolating in my head in the community movement, kind of like pulling together this punk rock spirit. And maybe it's an opportunity to create some sort of an economy that's community-based within AI filmmaking too, that borrows a lot from music. Imagine this, the venue. An evening that's part film screening, part art installation, part playground. Curated short films by independent creators projected in an intimate space, but the experience doesn't end when the lights come up. So we've got a little bit of this, but it's a real extension of this. The experience itself, it's making a whole experience. Remember when you went to the famous Players cinemas, the Cineplex Odeons, and they had an arcade in there, and you spent like, $30 trying to get a toy out of that goddamn like grapple machine, or, trying to get a high score on those arcade games before you went in to see, Jerry Bruckheimer's latest piece? It's kind of combining that into the same narrative experience. So, curated screening program, indie AI films selected for story, not spectacle, theme, food, and cocktails. Curating the whole experience that's on point within the creative narrative. Matching the night's films and mood, set pieces and installation to explore, sit on, use. If there's props that are cool, you get to like carry them around and take Instagram photos and things like that. DJ playing theme match music as you arrive and between films. A VJ running live visual riffs on the screen, remixing the night's imagery. It's like Rocky Horror meets Meow Wolf, right? And meets your local punk venue, or a really cool, beautiful space like here at Multimodal Media Lab. The DJ and the VJ Live layer is really interesting because those two really ground the aesthetic. I play around with these like AI-powered lights to elevate just what's beyond on the screen. I try to get like color palettes that are complementary to what's happening in here, and then it kind of runs the show. But if you actually have humans behind it, that's intentional, it really becomes a really powerful sort of set piece and statement, especially if you're able to curate it inside of the same ecosphere as what's being played. And that's where the community aspect really gets its jam, because everybody brings their different talents and like plays with that universe and brings it all in, and everybody gets to share it. The real kicker, this is one that is a little bit hard, but I think with local compute, it can be really possible. Playing with the IP. So imagine if there's stations where you've got an audience built up already, and there's a handful of terminals that have the very imagery and models that are only exclusively accessible within that venue and in that time. And people can just go and play and remix and spin up new shorts. Like they can prompt it in, if there's a video to video section, you could just, vibe act something, and then the character gets mapped onto that. It's like, it's taking XR and using it in this new sort of playground to really have community engagement within your own IP. And I think that's really powerful, because once you get people to play within your IP, like let's look at fandom, right? That we know that works in people creating their own stories if they happen to have access to the gifts and talent of creating their own traditional films, or having the time to be able to write books within the Star Trek universe or something, right? It's a really powerful modality to create an audience and buy-in. And it doesn't have to be on the big level anymore. We have tools that allow us access to community and crowds like we never have before. And now we have the technology to allow them to play in that same universe one for one if we control the access to it so that it doesn't go haywire. But they can take clips and like, hey, I went to this like experiential thing, like I sat on the couches that were there. I like posed with like, the deer head that was mounted on the wall. And then I spun up like a 10-second like short in the universe. How cool of an experience would that be, right? That sounds like a lot of fun, right? So that's my kind of like sandbox on what I hope to kind of like bring together a lot of worlds that have worked before. And I would love for as many of you that feel as passionate about it to jump on board with this, because I think there's a real vessel that could really work here. And if we keep it in a community aspect, like, there's a lot of nonprofit punk rock clubs that really made movements happen. Like if we even look all the way back to like Ian McKay at Discord, who started a label that was community driven. They gave access to recording gear. They just let who they thought was cool and go with it. And there was this incredible new diaspora of sounds that came out of it and ethics and community involvement. And it was centered on like everybody needs to have access. And I think that's a really important part. If we're going to build something, let's build it where everyone has a real equal chance. Does that sound like an amazing opportunity?
Yeah.
Cool. Maybe that can escalate quickly. I really hope it does. And if you feel the same way, let's bring it all together. Let's talk to these voices that are going to present tonight from near and far. We have so many cool things to look at and discuss tonight. So I'm really excited to move forward. Thank you very much, everybody.